Hi, good evening. My name is David Antonio Martinez Calderon, and I'm going to present the evidence tree or learning outcome option 2, which actually asks me to talk about a lot of a lot of things about their concepts and their contextualized ways. So first, I will talk about globalization. Well, simply globalization is a process of interaction and integration among the people, companies, and governments of different nations, a process driven by international trade and investment and aided by information technology. So, this means that globalization is thanks due to the technological advances that we have done today, and also uh, an attempt to make better our the economies and the relationships within the countries. And technically globalization is something, it's the contrary of nationalism. So what do we got about globalization? We have the negatives and the positives. The positives is that we have increasing border trade. This means generally exportation. For example, the exportation of goods from Mexico to United States or to other countries. For example, the vineyard that's located outside of Hermosillo goes to goes to goes to Germany to be exported so they can make the wine there. Also, we have international culturalization. This means that this means that uh, a- all of the countries have the chance to learn about each other's cultures. For example, uh, Spain can learn about the cultures of a country like Japan or countries like Russia, etc., etc. Also, there are advances in technology because every country since the beginning of history, every nation, every tribe, etc., etc., ha, has sorry had any unique type of technological uh, out- outbreaks. For example, here in Mexico, there were other agricultural methods to farm. Uh, and in Europe, for example, gunpowder was being created at the same time where the Native Americans of Mexico were beginning to experiment with that kind of agricultural technology. Eh. Also, there are advances in information. The, this mainly to technology in a general way. But also there are the negatives. The negatives is the dependence on the economy of powerful nations, the loss of nationalism, the setups of this also globalization setups a currency race to the bottom, like pesos to dollars or yen to dollars. S- Because, for example, $1 is equal to 17 pesos, I think, and yen is even higher. Also, since there are a lot of companies within international wide range that for example industrial industries uh, uses a lot of resources like oil or metals, so it is a greater consumption of limited resources. Also, we need to know the concept of trade because this is a part of globalization. Trade is a basic economic concept involving the buying and selling of goods and services with the compensation paid by a buyer to a seller, or the exchange of goods or services between parties. Also, the most common medium of exchange for these transactions is money, but also trade may also be executed with the exchange of goods or services between both parties. This is very. The last point is very, very has a very low practice. For one of the few places that actually does barter is Texas, if you didn't know, because they Texas at first they wanted to be independent of the USA and of Mexico, so they wanted to have their own rules, their own economy, etc. And they actually wanted barter to be part of it. But also they had their main coin, which is like a silver coin, for example. Also, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the WTO, which is the World Trade Organization. It was integrated on the 1st of January of 1995. Uh, its importance is that it supports the economical growth of developing countries, giving them a chance to prosper. By developing countries, it means third world countries. Sadly, Mexico enters as a developing country, even though we are quite quite above the general third countries like most of the countries in Africa where they suffer poverty. Uh, and also generally almost every Latin American country is in the development state. Also, the WTO has many roles. It operates a global system of trade rules. It acts as a forum for negotiating trade agreements. It settles trade disputes between its members and it supports the needs of developing countries. Also, the WTO is composed by 80 supporting countries. Sorry. Uh, Now, here comes the digital revolution, which is one of the most current and newest movements in the between the 20th and the 21st century. Uh, it has been marked by the creation of television, and the movement has continued to show its progress with the outbreaks of the newest technologies like smartphones or computers, and also with the NASA, the supercomputers. However, it is not only a technological movement, but also a movement where the people have learned and opted to search for information that once upon a time were such rarities until the sources of information became digitalized. Why? Because before the digital revolution, the only place you could access for information was actually the libraries. And the libraries don't contain all the information of the world. They are information that only the local area has, and it hasn't published to the world in those times. But since the information is digitalized now, it can be available to everyone. Also, it is a movement that has influenced the world in the social, economic, and political paths. The advantages and disadvantages on digital revolution. The advantages is that it links groups and individuals together, for example, social media. It enables the sharing of ideas that it it's not only limited to political ideas or something like that. It also gives a chance for people to gain ideas of others for a business, which leads us to the third point, which is jobs can be made online. And lastly, it allows a less punishing market between the job competitions. This means that, for example, if there, for example, in your local area, there are stores that sells a bigger variety than your online store. It may be not, it may be that that store wins more money, but since you are available to the world, you still have a chance to be to be equal in competition. But also it comes with its disadvantages. One of one of it is the abuse of the wealth of knowledge. Uh, also, it allows people with questionable tendencies to be informatically equal. This means that, for example, people that have mental diseases like pedophilia or something like that can have the access to the information that almost everyone can, and they have an advantage over those possible victims, sadly. Also, it breaks down relationships and the sense of our community. By breaking down the sense of our community, it means that we can for this is something similar to the disintegration of nationalism. Since you're, for example, if you have a friend in a faraway place like Peru, Brazil, etc. It means that you may be more integrated with them than your local community. Also, by it breaks down relationships, it means that in the digital world you need to be in constant contact with the people that you associate with. Also, the digital realm encourages pacifism, which means that there may be an important video, one that could mark our lives, but people only see it, say that it's rather interesting idea, but then they go to the next topic. Finally, we have terrorism, which is which it actually have several concepts, but it also is one concept. Terrorism is the use of violence and threats to intimidate with political purposes, in which may lead to a nation falling in a state of fear. By this, it means that it's more like a conquest that terrorism wants to achieve. They want to force their visions, their own systems upon those established nations by guerrilla tactics, which purpose is to provoke fear so that people may subjugate to the terrorist party. And technology have affected and benefited terrorists. How it has affected it is that now governments can create new technologies and training programs suited for counter-terrorism. There are counter-activities that are practiced by almost all security personnel to try and identify a terrorist. Also, with better technology, it is difficult to hack on the digital network with better defenses like firewalls. Also, and military powers have the means to disrupt any terrorist communication activity and may also have the chance to gain intel while doing so. However, terrorists have benefits with the technology. Terrorists have the means to have advanced weaponry equal to that of a nation's military power, like biological bombs or weapons. The terrorists develop new ways to infiltrate their objectives. The terrorists can hack the digital network of the desired nation or party, and the terrorists have easier ways to communicate with each other. So it's mostly in a stalemate. This point. So this concludes learning outcome 3 for for history class. I hope you liked teacher, and that's it. And you can see my biography here. So thank you.